So, you're thinking about getting married in the Philippines. That's amazing. But before you dive into all the planning, you should know that it involves way more than just saying, I do. There's a whole legal playbook you've got to follow, and today we're going to break it all down for you, step by step, straight from the family code. Let's get into it.
It's an exciting thought, right? Tying the knot, starting a new chapter. But before you get totally lost in the romance of it all, it's so important to understand the legal side of things that makes it all official. See, in the eyes of the law, marriage isn't just a beautiful ceremony with flowers and a great playlist. Nope. It's a special contract, a really serious social institution, and it's governed by a very specific rule book, the family code. The key thing to remember is you don't get to make up your own rules here. To make this super clear, we've broken this whole journey down into 5 main parts. First, we'll look at what marriage actually is legally. Then, we'll get into the core requirements, the big quest for a marriage license, what makes the ceremony itself official, and finally, we'll touch on what happens when a marriage crosses international borders. Okay, first up, let's lay the foundation. Before we can even start talking about the how-tos, we really need to understand what marriage legally is in the first place. Article 1 of the Family Code is super specific with its words. It calls marriage a special contract and a permanent union between a man and a woman. Now, this isn't just some personal agreement between two people. It's considered a social institution where the state, the government, sets the fundamental, non-negotiable terms. All right, with that definition in our back pocket, let's get into the actual rules of the game. These are the absolute must-haves, the legal requirements that make a marriage legit. So the law splits these requirements into 2 big buckets. First, you've got the essential requisites. Think of these as being all about the people involved. You gotta have the legal capacity to marry, which means you're at least 18, and, of course, you both have to freely consent. No pressure, no force. The second bucket is the formal requisites. This is all about the process. This means you need an authorized solemnizing officer like a judge or a priest, a valid marriage license, and, an actual marriage ceremony. So what happens if you mess up one of these steps? Well, Article 4 spells out the consequences, and you really need to pay attention here. If you're totally missing one of the requirements, say you have no license at all, the marriage is void. Poof. Legally, it's like it never even happened. Now, if there's a defect, like if consent was forced, the marriage is voidable. That means it's valid until a court officially annuls it. And what about a small paperwork mistake, an irregularity? Well, the marriage is still valid, but whoever was responsible might have to pay some penalties. And now for the part everybody just loves, the paperwork. We're calling this the quest for a license, because honestly, it feels like a multi-step journey you have to complete before you can even think about walking down the aisle. Here's the basic roadmap for your quest. It all kicks off with filing an application, then submitting all your documents, getting parental input if you're on the younger side, waiting for a public notice period to pass, and then, finally, getting that all-important license in your hands. Okay, step 1 is that sworn application, and Article 11 is clear that they need a lot of details. We're talking full names, ages, citizenship, your parents' info, and if you've been married before, you have to be upfront about how that marriage ended. The local civil registrar needs the complete picture, no shortcuts. Now, age is a really critical factor here. If you're between 18 and 21 years old, Article 14 lays down a very firm rule. You absolutely must get written parental consent. And let me be clear, without it, the process just stops right there. No consent, no license. End of story. Okay, for those of you between 21 and 25, the law eases up a little bit. You don't need their consent anymore, but Article 15 says you still have to ask for their advice. And this isn't just a friendly suggestion. If they advise against it or just refuse to give any advice, your license gets put on hold for 3 months. And there's one more hoop to jump through for younger couples. Article 16 is pretty clear. If you fall into either of those age brackets, the one needing consent or the one needing advice, you also have to go to marriage counseling and get a certificate to prove you did it. It's a mandatory step. So, once your application is all filled out and submitted, it doesn't just get filed away. According to Article 17, it has to be posted publicly for 10 straight days. This is basically the legal version of speak now or forever hold your peace. It gives anyone a chance to come forward if they know of a legal reason why you two shouldn't get married. After all that, you finally get your license. But listen up, it has an expiration date. The law gives you exactly 120 days to use that license, anywhere in the Philippines.
If you don't get married within that 4-month window, it expires, and you got to start the whole process all over again. So yeah, use it or lose it.
Now we get to the main event, the ceremony. This is the moment your union finally crosses the finish line and becomes officially and legally recognized.
Your wedding can be a huge party or a simple affair, but legally, it all boils down to 3 absolute essentials. 1, you both have to be physically there in front of the official. 2, you have to personally declare that you take each other as husband and wife. And 3, this all has to happen in front of at least 2 adult witnesses. And all of this leads to the most important piece of paper of the day, the marriage certificate. As Article 22 points out, this thing isn't just a pretty souvenir. It is the official, legally binding proof of your marriage, and it records all the key details of your union for the state. And the person who marries you, they have legal duties too. They have to give you the original certificate, and then they're responsible for sending copies to the local civil registrar within 15 days. This is super important because it ensures your marriage gets officially recorded by the government. Okay, for our last section, let's talk about a situation that's pretty common in our global world. What happens when a marriage takes place outside of the Philippines? Article 26 gives us the general rule of thumb here. Basically, if your marriage is considered valid in the country where it happened, it's considered valid here in the Philippines. But, and this is a really big but, the Philippines will not recognize a foreign marriage if it's the kind that is fundamentally prohibited by our own laws, like bigamous or incestuous marriages. And Article 26 has this incredibly important provision. It deals with a specific scenario. A Filipino is married to a foreigner, and that foreign spouse gets a valid divorce in their own country. This clause right here specifically allows the Filipino spouse to be able to remarry under Philippine law. It's a key exception, especially in a country that doesn't have its own divorce law. So there you have it. That's the legal playbook for getting married in the Philippines. The process is laid out, the rules are defined. The final question, though, that's a personal one. Only you can answer. The legal playbook is clear, but is the journey for you?